First of all, ladies and gentlemen of the press, I wish to first thank you for attending this press conference. More than 1 week ago, the Minister of Education, someone who was entrusted with a duty to protect and promote the interests of our young people, announced the suspension of the government's student loan program. While I have gone on record to declare my strong disagreement with the position taken by the government to suspend this program, I invited the government to rethink its priorities and to give our young scholars the assistance and support they deserve. To this day, that has not happened. While the government turns a blind eye and deaf ear to the crushing blow this suspension has delivered to hundreds of students and families in our country, I have been overwhelmed with phone calls, emails, and visits from parents and students who have been severely and adversely affected as a result. I want to be clear about something. These are students that come from PLP and F&M homes. Their pain and frustration are real, and their anguish and voices must be heard in the interest of the development of our country. The government's total disregard for the sacrifices these students and their families have made is beyond belief. I say that because the government is quite aware of the severe economic downturn we are feeling, with hundreds of people losing their jobs, some of them without warning. As mentioned, I received many calls, but one was from a distraught mother of a student who shared that her daughter is so devastated that she will no longer be able to commence her studies, that she has become rather depressed and scarred by what is a personally traumatic experience for her. She is one of many I have spoken to over the past few days. Prospective students who had their tickets purchased, resigned from jobs, paid non-refundable deposits, secured visas, reserved accommodations, and prepared their lives for a major change, now face grievous disappointment because the government broke their promise to them. What the government has done in this instance is destroyed what for most Bahamians was their only path to obtaining access and opportunity to fully realize their dreams and aspirations in an environment that inspires now so little hope. What's worse is that they choose to suspend the program within days of the commencement of the school year for many. And even though they had to be aware of the state of the program for at least 2 years, they choose to keep Bahamians in the dark and to do nothing to protect and save the program. At this late stage, the College of the Bahamas and alternative financing are not viable options. These same children, the victims of the broken promise, now have to find a way not only to cope with their dashed dreams, but must now find a job here in this challenging and scarce market, and we know what the prospects are for that. Today, I have with me a student affected by the suspension of the program, who represents many of the victims of this government's insensitivity, who also wanted to be here today to personally express their anguish and frustration, however choose not to due to the fear that they may be victimized should the program ever be reinstated. But she was brave to be here today. I, like many, question the government's justification in spending millions of dollars on road improvements while hundreds of students are left stranded and abandoned. What is the point of revitalizing Bay Street and the downtown area and creating new opportunities if we are not developing the brain power to take advantage of it? I understand that the government has spent at least $10 million to aid in the hosting of Miss Universe? How can we truly benefit from the promotion and exposure of our islands when in the same breath we cannot find $1 to support and educate our people? When will we realize that our potential as a country is limited to the quality of our human resources? Or does this government have no regard for average Bahamian families who are looking to education as a way to progress socially and economically? Since the government has yet to indicate that they have reviewed and re-examined their position on the suspension of the education loan guarantee, I wish to offer some immediate solutions to ensure that these students are still afforded the opportunity to commence their studies as early as this week. Firstly, I implore the Prime Minister, with a stroke of his pen, to demonstrate his confidence in our young people by increasing the amount of the government guarantee loan. The Education Guarantee Fund Act places no ceiling on the amount that the government is permitted to guarantee. Secondly, a government serious about its young people would prioritize its spending and budget to ensure that the hundreds of young persons affected receive the funding necessary to pursue their studies. Indeed, these students, our people, must rank higher than many of the less critical areas where the government continues to squander the people's money. These are simple and achievable positions that any government can take with immediate effect. And more importantly, at this time, these are positions that would put those students who have suffered as a result of the abrupt and insensitive suspension of the loan guarantee in school, many of them even by the end of next week. In terms of long-term solutions to ensure the future viability of the program, I wish to suggest the following for serious consideration by the government. Firstly, without delay, the government ought to publish the names of persons who have failed to repay their loans and to bring civil proceedings where necessary, regardless of whom the recipient is, his or her political affiliation or family relations. Secondly, more stringent controls and increased public reporting requirements and regular audits ought to be instituted to ensure that never again should innocent students be left to suffer at the 11th hour, and that alternative provisions can be put in place in sufficient time to ensure that Bahamian students continue to benefit from a world-class education. In this way, the innocent will not suffer for the guilty. Thirdly, as also suggested in the International Monetary Fund Bahamas Report 2002, and as expressed by columnist Nikki Kelly this week, very clear, stringent, and well-publicized eligibility criteria ought to be put in place to ensure that the fund is not subject to political abuse in the future. I implore the Prime Minister to do the right thing. Many around his cabinet table have benefited from the opportunity to pursue their academic dreams. He now must extend the same to the many students who also have dreams of achieving higher learning and making a name for themselves in their contribution to this nation. I thank you.